Welcome back. In this lesson, I want to briefly cover IAM groups. So let's get started. IAM groups, simply put, are containers for IAM users. They exist to make organizing large sets of IAM users easier. You can't log in to IAM groups, and IAM groups have no credentials of their own. The exam might try to trick you on this one, so it's definitely important that you remember you cannot log into a group. If the question or the answer suggests logging into a group, it's just simply wrong. IAM groups have no credentials and you cannot log into them. So they're used solely for organizing IAM users to make management of IAM users easier. So let's look at a visual example. We've got an AWS account, and inside it we've got two groups, developers and QA. In the developers group, we've got Sally and Mike. In the QA group, we've got Natalie and Sally. Now the Sally user, so the Sally in developers and the Sally in the QA group, that's the same IAM user. An IAM user can be a member of multiple IAM groups, so that's important as well to remember for the exam. Groups give us two main benefits. First, they allow effective administration-style management of users. So we can make groups that represent teams or projects or any other functional groups inside a business, and we can put IAM users into those groups, so it helps us organize. Now the second benefit, which builds off the first, groups can actually have policies attached to them, and this is both inline policies and managed policies. In the example that's on screen now, the developers group have a policy attached, as do the QA group. And there's also nothing to stop IAM users, which are themselves within groups, also having their own inline or managed policies. And this is the case with Sally. Now, when an IAM user such as Sally is added as a member of a group, and let's say the developers group, that user gets the policies that are attached to that group. So Sally gains the permissions of any policies that are attached to the developers group and any other groups that that user is a member of. So Sally also gets the policies attached to the QA group, and Sally has any policies that she has directly. With this example, Sally is a member of the developers group, which has one policy attached, a member of the QA group with an additional policy attached, and she has her own policy. So AWS merges all of those into a set of permissions. So effectively, she has three policies associated with her user, one directly and one from each of the group memberships that her user has. When you're thinking about the allow or denies in policy statements for users that are in groups, you need to think about those which apply directly to the user and their group memberships. So collect all of the policy allows and denies that a user has directly and from their groups, collect them all up, and apply the same deny, allow, deny rule to them as a collection. So evaluating whether you're allowed or denied access to a resource, it doesn't specifically get any more complicated. It's just the source of those allows and denies can broaden when you've got users that are in multiple IAM groups. Now, I mentioned last lesson that an IAM user can be a member of 10 groups, and there was a 5,000 IAM user limit for an account. Neither of those are changeable. They're hard limits. There's no effective limit for the number of users in a single IAM group. So you could have all 5,000 IAM users in an account being a member of a single IAM group. Another common area of trick questions in the exam is around the concept of an all users group. There isn't actually a built-in all users group inside IAM, so you don't have a single group that contains all of the members of that account like you do with some other identity management solutions. In the case of IAM, you could create a group and add all of the users in that account into the group, but you would need to create and manage it yourself, so that doesn't exist natively. Another really important limitation of groups is that you can't have any nesting. You can't have groups within groups. IAM groups contain users, and IAM groups can have permissions attached. That's it. There's no nesting, and groups cannot be logged into. They don't have any credentials. Now there is a limit of 300 groups per account, but this can be increased with a support ticket. Now there's also one more point that I want to make at this early stage in the course. This is something that many other courses tend to introduce later on or at a professional level, but it's important, I think, that you understand this from the very start. I'll show you later in the course how policies can be attached to resources, for example S3 buckets. These policies, known as resource policies, they can reference identities. So for example, a bucket could have a policy associated with that bucket, and that policy could allow Sally access to that bucket. So that's a resource policy. It controls access to a specific resource, and it allows or denies identities to access that bucket. Now it does this by referencing these identities, and it references these identities using an ARN, or Amazon Resource Name. Users and IAM roles, which I'll be talking about later in the course, can be referenced in this way. So a policy on a resource can reference IAM users and IAM roles by using the ARN. So a bucket could give access to one or more users, or it could give access to one or more roles. But groups are not a true identity. They can't be referenced as a principle in a policy. A resource policy cannot grant access to an IAM group. So you can grant access to IAM users, and those users can be in groups, but a resource policy cannot grant access to an IAM group. It can't be referred to in this way. So you couldn't have a resource policy on an S3 bucket and grant access to the developers group and then expect all of the developers to access it. That's not how groups work. Groups are just there to group up IAM users and allow permissions to be assigned to those groups which the IAM users inherit. So this is an important one to remember, whether you're answering an exam question which involves groups, users and roles or resource policies, or whether you're implementing real-world solutions. It's easy to overestimate the features that a group provides. Don't fall into the trap of thinking that a group offers more functionality than it does. It's simply a container for IAM users. That's all it's for. It can contain IAM users, it can have permissions associated with it. That's it. You can't log on to them and you can't reference them from resource policies. Okay, so that's everything I wanted to cover in this lesson. Go ahead, complete the video, and when you're ready, I look forward to you joining me in the next.